Alrighty, and Philip, can you record us?
All right. So we have a quorum present. All right. So let's wait just one more minute or two and let me know if Councilman Waring joins in. Bethany, if you don't mind.
It's Velvet.
Okay. Hi, Carol.
Hello, Chairman.
We're having a little trouble hearing you, Peter. So speak up nicely if you would.
All right. Can you hear me okay now?
That's a little better.
How about that?
Yeah, that was better, I thought.
I'm giving you maximum volume.
That's it. That's better.
All right. So it sounds like you're shouting at me, but that's all right. All right. We're missing Councilman Waring still.
Yes, he hasn't joined us yet.
All right. Well, it's 3:04, so let's go ahead and call the October 11, 2021 meeting of the Real Estate Committee to order. And Councilmember Jackson, I think you got the honors of an invocation.
Yes, let's bow our heads, please. Lord, we thank you for allowing us the opportunity to gather this afternoon to do the work of our city. We trust and need your presence. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Well done. So the first order of business is approval of the September 27th minutes of our last meeting. I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. The first, I'm going to have somebody read the first item for me regarding after the minutes being approved.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a First Amendment to lease agreement between City of Charleston and the Gilliard Management Corporation. The property is owned by the City of Charleston. The address is 2 George Street.
Very good. All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve A, and we'll get some information from the appropriate staff member.
I'll move for approval.
All right.
Second.
All right. So who's from legal going to handle this for us? Lou?
Any staff out there want to present this or discuss it?
I will, Mayor. I think Julia handled this. This is the lease that we've had with the Gilliard Corporation for the last couple of years for some space in 2 George Street. This is an extension of that lease for, let me see if I can have it here.
Well, this is
Suite 2200, Suite 2200 on the second floor.
It extends this through a couple of more years. It increases the rent. It extends it through 2024. It increases the rent to $2,000 a month in year 1, and it ends in year 5 at $3,000 a month. This is space that they use for their foundation and for their education program.
Okay. Anybody on the committee have a question about this lease?
Can I just ask, what are we charging them now?
I think it's $17.50 now, Carol. So it's gone up, and it goes up every year going forward.
Thank you.
Can I answer your question, Councilmember Jackson?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know, Councilmember Waring has joined us now.
Very good. Hello, Councilmember Waring. Glad you could join us.
How's everybody doing?
Well, good. We're on the first item regarding an extension of a lease on George Street, and I'm about to call the question.
Yeah, well, let me ask a question or two. I saw where the rent's going to increase 50% in 5 years. Can you tell me the rationale behind that?
was actually their proposal, Councilman Waring. This is for the space in 2 George that they use for their foundation and for their education program offices.
Well, listen, if it's their suggestion, I'm fine with it.
They're paying us, so remember, we're not paying
Yeah.
them.
Listen,
They're
if they
paid.
feel they're strong enough to do that, I'm with it. Okay.
That's I thought so. So let's not reject this gift horse. So,
No. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All those in favor of the extension of the lease signify by saying yes.
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 Yes. Everything. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any no's? The yeses have it. Next item, Councilmember Jackson, if you mind reading that for me on the record, please.
Yes, sir. Item B, request authorization for the mayor to execute a contract for deed between the Commissioners of Public Works of the City of Charleston and the City of Charleston for the city's purchase of 56 Murray Boulevard, Charleston, South Carolina, for a purchase price of $2,500,000, TMS number 457-11-02-066.
I'm
The
gonna
property is,
I
property
think we
is
got,
up.
approval. That's all. I was gonna move for approval.
all right, I think, Councilmember Jackson, I think we got it. And I entertain a motion by Councilmember Waring to approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Good. All right. Is anybody from staff who talk about this purchase?
So I might just step in, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Because this originated from a few months ago from my view of the latest map from the Corps of Engineers about the placement of pumps around the perimeter of the peninsula to help us with drainage, particularly if we were to build a perimeter protection wall. In the case of the battery, I must say we got a protection wall already, and so you have that same kind of issue about evacuating water. But importantly, after I raised this issue with Matt Fountain in the Stormwater Department, he pointed out that corner is not only the only vacant lot along the Battery, but it also is at the corner with Limehouse Street, which is the terminus of one of the longest brick archway tunnels in the city. It runs from there at the Battery all the way up past Spring Street. And Matt's comment was, well, at some point, Mayor, we're gonna, as sea level rises, we'll need to have pump stations at the end of our major archway tunnels, assuming they all get cleaned out and are serving the drainage purposes that we think and hope they will. So anyway, the Charleston Water System was about to put the property on the market for sale, and this proposed contract, puts it in the authority of the city, ownership of the city, so that as we work things out as to the future pump needs, be there a protection wall or not, we have the flexibility to use this property for a small pump station. In the meantime, after a lot of thought and study goes into it, and say 5 years from now, we decide we won't need it for that, we could always sell it.
Right.
But I think we'll need it for that.
Very
Mr.
good.
Chairman?
Yep. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
thank you. I really appreciate that introduction description of why we should be doing this now, Mayor. Just the fact that it's the only vacant lot on the Battery seems like it might be a good idea to hold on to a resource like that. And as much as we've been educated by the stormwater team on the value of those brick archways, I think that it is, strategic of us to be able to make them as as functional and robust as we possibly can. So my only question is, I know that the first year or something, they're going to just write down the money that they pay us. What will that do to our overall budget? Will that impact then the stormwater drainage fund, or where will we see that loss if we're going to take their money and use it for the purchase?
So basically, they're letting us finance the purchase by way of a deduction from the fee they normally pay us. You're correct. I believe, and Amy's on the line, that goes into the general fund. So to that extent, it's money that we won't see in the general fund. Isn't that correct, Amy?
That's correct.
Well,
That's
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor and Ms. Jackson, if you allow me, one of the things I thought about, Mr. Mayor, instead of that coming out the general fund, because there's another piece that you have on the agenda at tomorrow's meeting, with the delinquent fees, to approach the delinquent fees that we discussed a year ago.
Yes,
I think if we allow that to come out the drainage fund, by the time we put a system in place to more effectively collect delinquent drainage fees, we'd have more than enough to pay for this property out of that versus the general fund. So I'm wholeheartedly in favor of buying this. As a matter of fact, Mr. Mayor, I don't think you touched on, I think there's a tunnel. It might be good to describe that, especially if somebody asks doing Ways and Means or anything. There's a tunnel that comes all the way from, I think Spring Street or something like that.
That's right.
I'm gonna let you describe that. You a little bit more up on that than I.
Brick Arch.
But I'm talking about this tunnel that comes almost across the spine of the peninsula all the way to where this piece of property is, in the event that we're gonna need this property potentially for some sort of pump system, whether it's for sunny day flooding or rain gushes or perimeter wall, or maybe both. So it's a wise purchase. My question is, I think it'd be better if we can, we're thinking about it, we put a system in place to collect these delinquent stormwater fees, take it out of drainage versus the general fund. And certainly Amy can probably touch on that. It's for drainage purpose, one way or the other. So it seems like that's where the money should come from.
So we've got a funding source one way or another.
Oh yeah, we can work that part out later on, but I just wanted to throw that out for discussion.
Right. No, I think if we got the ability to pay for this thing, we need to go ahead and get it. The mayor did touch upon the tunnel, Councilman Ware, if I heard him correctly.
Okay, all right, great then. All right. Then.
Yeah. All right. I think we've heard enough. I will go ahead and call the question. All those in favor of this purchase signify by saying yes.
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 All right. Any no's?
No.
All right. The yeses have it. Very good. I think that's a wise move on our part to jump on this as quickly as possible. All right. Councilman Jackson, would you do me the favor of the next one as well? And you can summarize it.
Yes, sir. I was a good secretary on the student council in the 6th grade. That's all they let me do is read the minutes and, take the notes.
Well, you can
Okay.
summarize. We get the
Here I
gist.
go. Item C, approval of a resolution to support a Charleston County Greenbelt Program application by the Low Country Land Trust in conjunction with the Charleston Aviation Authority to provide for a conservation easement of that certain property within Charleston County, more commonly known as Oakville, containing an estimated 94 acres, bearing TMS numbers 317-00-00-007 and a portion of 317-00-00-011, located at the urban growth boundary on Johns Island in Charleston, South Carolina.
Move for
And I would
approval,
like to
Mr.
move
Chairman.
that we approve this.
I think Councilman Waring said he moved.
I'll
and
second.
take
I'll
yours as a
second.
I got you a second. All right. We're very enthusiastic today.
I know.
Is anybody from staff who would enlighten us on this agenda item?
Mr. Chairman, I see Amy Wharton has raised her hand, and then I was
Yeah.
also wanted to call on Dale Morris to make a couple of remarks about this
Amy,
matter.
Amy, you're on deck.
Well, I wanted to go back to the CBW property. So if we want to finish this one up and then go back after Dale speaks, that's fine.
All right, Dale, you're on deck. We'll come back to Amy after the fact.
Great. Thank you, council. Thank you, real estate committee members. So this property, as you know, was purchased by the airport not too long ago. They saw it on the market and they didn't want houses built there. So they purchased it to take it off the market because it preserves their capability, their ability to do things. They had previously been in discussion or concurrently been in discussion with Low Country Land Trust to place a possible conservation easement on it to protect it for various purposes. One is to prevent the development. And if you know the land and water analysis that we did for the comprehensive plan and the Dutch dialogues reports and this particular piece of property, it is very low lying. It is subject to sea level rise in the future, coastal flooding, as well as some possible upland induced flooding. So it is very vulnerable and it is a marsh migration area. So as the seas rise, as the Stoney River rises, it's going to be a place where the water is going to want to go. So keeping people out of there, people from living there makes a whole lot of sense. It mitigates their danger, prevents that danger. And it places a conservation easement on it, which means that for any future transaction with this property, that easement would still apply. And thus it protects the property in perpetuity from development. It makes a lot of sense to do this.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Any questions? Excuse me. Any questions for Dale or any comments from council?
I just want to make a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's sort of like what we said on the earlier item. I don't see any downside in doing this. I see only upside. I see that this has been a longstanding, sort of, let's say, burr under our saddle. Oakville had the essentially, by right opportunity to build a subdivision on these properties. And I think it's emblematic that they were trying to work through with our stormwater review process to get a site permit, a concept development plan, and then a site permit. And basically they haven't been able to get any sort of, even halfway with being able to design a stormwater drainage system that would satisfy our standards. So I came on council in 2018. I was at the city meeting the summer of 2017. I remember it was at the Gibbs. All of the neighborhood and the people that were very worried about this as a potentially flooding disaster area came and begged the council, not to annex the property. That went on for a long, long time. I think this is the best absolute answer we can give, and that we should give it an enthusiastic approval.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am.
Councilmember Powell has his hand up also. Mr.
All right,
Chair.
Councilmember Appel, you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Chairman Shade and everybody else. I fully support doing what we can to protect this land and not develop it. I think it's wise for a variety of reasons. My question is the cost. Do we have any idea of what the airport wants for this conservation easement?
Well, apparently, the state conservation group is committing 500,000, and they're requesting an additional 500,000 through the Greenbelt program. And what we're approving today will move this along to the Greenbelt Committee for consideration, and then they'll let us know back how they see it should be funded through the program.
This is just a first step in moving the ball down the field.
But I think the maximum exposure would be 500,000.
Yeah, and so if it comes back on a price tag too high, we can pull out of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's similar to the Griffith track on that.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds good. I just think that, in this analysis, it'll be helpful to see what the airport paid for the property, of course, because there's nothing that prevents the airport from just granting a conservation easement over the property. I mean, I recognize that, they've paid some money. They, ought to be able to recoup some of it, but this certainly shouldn't be a profit situation.
Right.
I would think, but this is a great project, and more power to it. Thanks.
Well, it's also going to benefit the airport as well in us doing this.
Right.
With an easement, there's no development. With no development, that just gives them more of a buffer, I think, if I understand this correctly. So there's a lot of wins in this column.
Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Waring has his hand up.
Yes, sir, Councilmember Waring.
I'm just agreeing with you, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of wins in this when Council Lady Jackson was right on point when she was saying this property, and I know Mr. Mayor remembers this, that property from a drainage standpoint was going to be a nightmare, in particular for surrounding neighbors pushing water on existing people. But I wanted to hopefully thank the Aviation Authority. Maybe we can, I don't know, send a letter or something for them stepping up and protecting their borders like this. So it is a win-win-win, as you described, Mr. Chairman, on this one right here. Just allies working in the same direction. Our stormwater policy, trying to help neighbors not get inundated with water from a new development, as well as the Aviation Authority having a broad view and protecting its borders. So the win-win-win, I agree.
And I think the broad view is the right terminology to use on this thing, the big picture. All right, let's call the question. This is just an approval for the resolution, phase 1. All those in favor say yes.
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 All right,
Yes.
any no's? All right, the yes has it. All right, the next items I understand are 2 annexations. Do we have anybody from staff?
I think it's
talk
just
about-
one. I think it's one, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
just one? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right,
1819 Bent Grass Court, 0.5 acres, TMS number 334-03-00-022, James Island District 12. Property
Again.
is owned by Winnetka and and Francis Weatherly Cleckley.
I will entertain a motion to approve that annexation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
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 Any no's? Yes, let's have it. All right. What else we got?
Mr. Chairman, if I may just follow up with a comment that I didn't make before the vote, in response to Councilmember Appel. I don't know the exact figure, but I do know that the Aviation Authority paid substantially more for the property. And I think the reimbursement for the easement would be something like 20% of the cost of their purchase. So there's absolutely no windfall to the Aviation Authority.
That's good.
And just a reminder, I think Amy Wharton had her hand up and
Yes,
still
you did.
be recognized.
Amy, you wanted to chime in on the other proceeding item before we adjourn?
Yeah, so we have, what you're approving is that the funding source be the general, basically as it is. So if we're gonna change it, I think we need to say that it's gonna be drainage funds in some way, shape, or form to make sure that the right funding source is approved.
Ms.
we
Warden,
need-
I don't see that it mentions a source at all. Maybe I
It
just
doesn't,
didn't
but
read
it's
it.
talking about the funding that they pay us, which goes into the general fund. So
Oh, I
I just, think in some way, we should probably clarify that it'll be coming from drainage funds.
Okay.
Because
So
we
we
won't be doing it that way. We'll actually be paying it with drainage funds instead of them cutting the funding to the general fund. So
But to go
it'll
back-
change the agreement a bit, because instead of them reducing our payment, we're going to actually be sending them a payment through the drainage fund.
Yeah,
Amy, let me go back to Councilmember Waring's question or suggestion about delinquent fees. Can you respond to his inquiry about that?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Councilmember Waring brought up a point that maybe we can fund this through the collection of delinquent fees. If I said that correctly, Councilmember Waring.
yeah, let me, this may be a little convoluted, but can we go in executive session? I want to say something, Mr. Mayor, that I think better say it in an executive session, as far as those delinquent fees go. I definitely agree with, I didn't realize, she's right. That issue of, what CWS pays and this land purchase, as you and I have discussed, Mr. Mayor, are two separate issues. And I think we need to keep them separate as opposed to them, paying it out of the, reducing what they pay us that goes into the general fund. There's some aspects with the delinquencies that I'd like to discuss in an executive session if we could. That I
Well,
think.
Yeah. Do we have anybody on legal with us? Anybody from the legal department on the call?
Yeah, I see Sterling.
Hi, Mr. Chair. I'm on the line.
So, in order for us to go into executive session without prior notice, do we need to have a 2/3 approval to do that?
You can ask to go into executive session for legal advice at any time, so you don't actually
Okay.
need to add it to the agenda.
And there's a legal issue that I'd like to speak on.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're doing this proper, Councilwoman Waring. So, all right,
And
there's
just
a
make sure you do
motion.
the motion and vote to go into executive session then.
I'll second.
Wait a minute. Make sure we
I'll
have
make
there's
a
a
motion to go in executive session to discuss legal issues.
All
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor of going into executive session to discuss a legal matter regarding the prior item on the agenda, say yes.
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 He knows. Okay. So, Madam Clerk,
Yes, give me just a